Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting version of Chip Talks podcast. So, today we're going to talk about some of the technology that we use in our clinic here in Oklahoma, in Edmond, Oklahoma. So, if you're in Oklahoma and you have an issue or an issue like what we're going to talk about, then please come see us. This is what we do every day. We love to see people. We love to help people with all manner of very interesting and difficult things, as you'll see with our tools. So first of all, some disclaimers. So I'm going to talk a lot about some evaluation tools that we use here. I'm going to talk to you guys about this technology and kind of how cool it is and how much it's indicative, let's say, of what's coming. So technology that can be cheaply and easily built and can really evaluate you with a lot of accuracy and really kind of get more to the bottom, let's say, of what's going on with us. But disclaimers. So the things I'm going to talk about, thermal imaging, it is somewhat of a diagnostic and can be for things like breast cancer. But generally, the way that we use it is not as a diagnostic instrument. And I'm not a doctor. So, I may say the wrong words throughout the course of this, but just disclaimer wise, we use these things for information. It'd be like, you coming over and us sitting down and talking in our house and us hooking up some woohoo device and seeing kind of what it says. So, but I do want to talk about the technology behind these devices because they're far from woohoo. And so we'll get into that a little bit, but I'll show you some pictures of what these things are able to do, which is kind of cool. And we'll start off first by talking about thermal imaging. So before we get to the pictures, because they're really cool and pretty and sexy and all that, but thermal imaging is super important for these reasons. And if you think about this, like our body is always trying to maintain a constant temperature. Well, that's not easy. That's not easy at all. In fact, that's extremely difficult. So think about the amount of work that a cell has to do to, first of all, just understand, is he in the right temperature range or not? And then he's got to kind of turn up the gas in his heaters, or he's got to kind of cut down the gas in his heaters, depending on what the cells around him are doing. So that takes a fair bit of communication and networking. And, I'm going to talk to my buddies and let them know kind of what I'm doing. I'm going to sense what they're doing. So that takes a lot of crosstalk, right? And your body's really good at that, though. And so your body's really good at balancing. And so, you'll have on each side of your body, like if I took a picture of one side of your shoulder and then exactly the same, on the opposite side, equidistant, then those two temperature points should be about the same, which is really cool. Your hands should be about the same. Your feet should be about the same. So your two legs should be about the same. And then you should have a nice kind of temperature delta or slowly decreasing temperature from our kind of metabolic area, which is our, kind of chest area, heart area, if you will, all the way down to our feet and out to our hands. And so if any of that is messed up, and we'll show some pictures, like if your hands are hotter than your arms, well, that means something. That means that, you've got some kind of inflammation, infection. Now, heat is expressed as, heat is, let's say, indicative of inflammation, infection. It's, cells working harder, let's say, in an area, which gives off more heat, and that will show up on the thermal imaging camera. And then you've got areas of coolness. And again, there's where cells aren't working as hard. So maybe those cells are dead or they're asleep. So that indicates areas of neuropathy, areas of lack of blood flow. And we can tell a lot just by these pictures. We can tell a whole bunch. Now, again, I'm going to kind of run through some, let's say, disease states. In some of these things, we can't diagnose any of that with what we're doing. So we can't diagnose you with any disease or anything like that. This is informational. And I'll probably say that about 12 different times because I don't want to get in trouble. We're not trying to be the medical system. We're trying to be an alternative and help you in different ways. So let's get to some of these pictures. And I'll talk about bioresonance here when we get into bioresonance, but in bioresonance is a little, it was a little woohoo for me, and I'm a pretty hard scientist, hard researcher, but it's proven itself out just, informationally. It's it's interesting, let's just say. Okay, so here we go. So let's look at some pretty pictures. Let me kind of get over to what I'm showing you so that I can drive. So this is a good picture of 2 feet that are not the same temperature, right? So a healthy foot will look like the foot on the left, where you've got kind of a nice temperature gradient out to the toes, and you've got kind of the heat running down kind of right through the post of your leg, so to speak. The foot on the right is a diabetic foot. Now, if we looked left to right, the foot on the left would be equal in temperature to the right foot, and the diabetic feet would not be the same temperature, if that makes sense. So they'd be off in temperature. But you can see how a diabetic foot looks. There's a lot of heat that's kind of all over the foot. It doesn't hold temperature well like the foot on the left. So this is a good example of somebody who might potentially have diabetes. And again, if we saw this on someone's picture, we're immediately going to say, hey, you might want to go check with your doc, and you might want to get some additional tests because it looks like, you've got some interesting things indicated. This is an athlete. So I wanted to show this picture because this is actually a college athlete. And you can see and I won't tell you what sport they play, but basically you can see the amount of stress, and this is what I'm highlighting on the picture on the left, in their lower legs. And so this is just indicates somebody who's doing a lot of work. So the white is hot, and you can see the heat here in the lower legs, and then also in the upper legs, and also right here by the knee. So heat is hot, and I mean, white is heat, and heat is obviously hot, but the white is indicating higher heat, and then the red is a little bit less than the white, and then the yellow is a little bit less than the red, and the green's a little bit less than the yellow. So you can see how hot the lower legs are here, and also some heat up in the upper legs. And again, this could be, injury, or it could be just a lot of work. This person's doing a lot of work. But when we come over here to the knees, you can see how hot the knees are. And so this is somebody who's doing a tremendous amount of work with their knees, or they have, potentially some knee damage. And so this would be a good picture to take to a, radiologist, somebody who read basically images for a living, to see if this is inflammation, or if this looks like some kind of, knee type damage is beginning to happen. So I would say that's inflammation, but again, I'm not a doctor. The other thing that thermal imaging can do is it's going to give us a look at really anything. And so you can see inside this camera picture what the horse looks like, in thermal image land versus kind of what the horse actually looked like. But we can see inflammation in any kind of animal, which is nice. And this is all measurable, which I'll talk about here in a second, which is cool. And again, this isn't, you can't measure this and get any kind of medical result yet. It needs to be studied and all that. This is not this is not from my camera. Let's just say the camera that we have is a lot higher resolution than this. And shows a lot more, let's say, detail than this. But this is a good image of someone's, breasts, and how we can begin to see breast cancer. Now, this would be a hard image to read, for a physician or radiologist, just because it's got a lot of different heat in it. And so one of the things that we do is we look between left and right for heat, and then we look at any unusual heat spots. And we would note that on a report. And so, that would be something that you could take to your radiologist or whatever, and, show them, hey, I've got some hot spots or areas of concern. The nice thing, though, about this, though, is there's, mammograms are uncomfortable for women. And, any woman who's ever had a mammogram will tell you how uncomfortable they are. This is non-invasive. It doesn't hurt. It's, you have to basically be naked to do it. So it's a little uncomfortable. But it's non-invasive. Nothing gets squished, nothing gets poked, nothing. It's literally a dark room where you can't even see the person taking the picture of you. Okay, and yeah. Okay, so this is an interesting picture, and this is something that, again, it would indicate rheumatoid arthritis. We could never make that call, but this is a situation where it would indicate something like rheumatoid arthritis, where you have basically your hands and fingers being hotter than the rest of your arms. And so you can see this very obviously on this picture. that the fingers are hotter than the hands and the hands are way hotter than the arms. So this is somebody who likely has, a condition like rheumatoid arthritis, where they've got a lot of inflammation in their joints, and that's pretty obvious to see on a thermal imaging camera. Okay, so this is a good picture of just, kind of, let's say, inflammation. And this is what we see in a lot of people. This person might have something going on here with this right leg, the lower right leg, because it's just hot, and that would indicate some kind of trauma or damage. They might have some knee stuff going on because we've got some heat here. We need some more pictures, let's say, to just make sure. But the big thing about this picture is look in this lymphatic area. Okay, so in the lymphatic area, you've got a whole bunch of heat. And what this means is just chronic inflammation. It means that this person is chronically inflamed. So they've got some kind of infection, some kind of allergy or something going on that's creating a lot of heat, generalized heat in their lymphatic system, that's causing their lymphatic system and blood system to be hotter than the rest of their body. And I see this in everyone. I mean, everyone that I see is chronically inflamed in some way. So, yeah, that's a common picture. Okay, so here's another picture of somebody. Now, this is pretty bad varicose veins, as you can see. And again, I couldn't tell you these are varicose veins, but I would just say they look like varicose veins to me, and likely is what they are. But you can see the heat that is in these, like this vein area right here is 3 degrees hotter than this entire lower leg. So that's a lot of heat. You can think of that as some kind of bacterial activity, some kind of pathogenic activity, something is causing all that heat, right? So it's some kind of, takes something to cause heat. It takes something to cause inflammation. It takes something to cause infection. And that's clearly an inflamed, infected area that's giving off a lot of heat. This one up here is even hotter, right? So, it makes you wonder, varicose veins are, a pretty common, let's say, thing that physicians see a lot. But it makes me wonder, are these veins associated with some kind of infection? To me, this looks like infection. And again, I'm no doctor, but I am a researcher. I look at this stuff all the time. And to me, this looks like infection, right? So it looks like severe infection in the blood vessels themselves. And, you can find some research that will indicate that this is infection related, and staph likely is one of the causes of potentially of varicose veins. But anyway, it's something that you can very obviously see on the thermal imaging camera. It makes you kind of go, well, I wonder if we're right about varicose veins, because they sure look like infection to me. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is BioResonance. So this is a friend of ours, Eve, from Finding Eve Wellness down in Durant. So if you're down in Durant, find Eve. She will help you do our stuff, and she'll also help you in a bunch of other ways. But she's getting a BioResonance exam here. Now, what BioResonance does, and again, this is informational. It cannot diagnose you. It's just it's looking at you in frequency. And what it's looking for are basically dysregulations. So it turns out that if my heart is healthy and your heart is healthy, that they'll generally kind of broadcast on the same frequency within the frequency that this machine is looking at. So it's quantum, and it's a little bit more complicated than just radio frequency. But again, if your heart is healthy and mine, they'll broadcast on about the same frequency. If they get off that frequency, the people who have built this machine and devised this machine over the years, it's Russian technology. This is a Chinese version of it. So it's been all over, let's say, the East. But they've just built a database that says, okay, well, if your heart is, at this frequency, it's off this much, well, that might mean something, right? So that might mean this, or that might mean that, or whatever. And so it indicates that. And again, so you'll see some stuff that might look like disease stuff. It's just information. It's just information that this machine is giving. But the cool thing that it does is it turns out pathogens will have a frequency, and it will basically be able to indicate if that frequency of a pathogen is in the same frequency range as an organ. which is useful, very, very useful. So the way that we use this machine really is to, we'll see somebody who looks like this, right? So they're chronically inflamed. Well, I'm going to tell them, hey, it looks like, I'm not a doctor, but it sure looks like you're chronically inflamed. And here's why: because you have all this heat in your lymphatic area. And that's, not normal. Your body should kind of have a core, temperature always. And so you're immediately going to go, okay, well, Chip, well, what am I chronically inflamed with? What's infecting me? And I'm going to go, well, what are you allergic to? And, past that, I don't know. So we need some other way to get some kind of indication of what might be infecting someone. So this bioresonance machine, because it can see basically the frequency of a pathogen and kind of have that be associated with the frequency of an organ, it at least gives us some stab in the dark, right, of what might be going on with you and kind of what might be infecting you or causing chronic inflammation. So this is just a look at the pancreas, and so it's just a faux image. This isn't actually anyone's actual pancreas. This is a look at the signaling that it uses. So the red line will be the signal that it kind of sends out that it's expecting to see from whatever it's looking for. And then the blue line is what it's getting back. So if these lines are right on top of each other, that, according to this thing, is going to be indicating or informationally indicating that that system is pretty healthy, so it's looking like it should look. If it's off, then again, it's going to give some information that says, hey, looking like these guys might be associated with what's off. And so we get an indication of what, pathogens might be associated with things. And it turns out, I say this all the time when I talk to people and when I'm, trying to help somebody, let's say, with their health, but God is a perfect engineer, right? And we all know this. God is a perfect engineer. He doesn't build things to fail. He doesn't build, junk. He doesn't build nature to not work, right? So God is a perfect engineer. Well, how does that apply to you? Well, it applies to you in the fact that every cell inside of us, and it doesn't matter how sick you are, how old you are, how diseased you are, it doesn't matter. Every cell inside of you is always striving toward perfect function. And if something happens to it, if it's infected or diseased or whatever, it's going to try really hard to divide and form a new perfect self that will be striving toward perfect. So every cell inside of us, which means that every organ inside of us, every system inside of us, every single thing inside of us is always striving toward perfect function. But yet, all of us are failing, right? So we fail, we get sick, we die, we get all manner of diseases. So what's going on there? Why can't we strive toward perfect function like everything in our body is trying to do? And your body will heal itself, right? If you just get all the junk out of the way. So what is the junk? What causes this? It has to be caused by something. God is a perfect engineer. You don't just break. Your cells don't just decide one day, hey, I'll give you liver failure. Hey, I'll give you kidney failure. Hey, I think I'll give you a heart attack. Doesn't work that way. It takes something. Right? So it takes an allergy, perhaps. Maybe you live over a lead mine. Maybe you're exposed to U-232 all the time. Maybe you work at Area 51 or something. And yes, those would be causal things. But the biggest thing for most of us is some kind of pathogen, some kind of bug that's infected us and is causing us all manner of harm and, all manner of, let's say, symptoms. But the cause isn't liver failure or kidney failure. Those aren't the causes. The cause is the damn bugs that cause the situation for our liver to fail or our kidneys to fail. Hopefully that makes sense. But this is the way that we begin to get some information about what might be, causing things. In the medical system right now, hopefully you guys notice this, and you will more and more. Believe me, what I'm saying is high truth, and I know it is. So you're going to be hearing a lot more about it, whether you listen to me now or not. But the interesting thing will be the look back on the medical system and why we never tested for H. pylori or hook round and pinworm. And I would say that 95% of the people that I see that I test with this device indicate for pylori or hook round and pinworm. that's never tested for in the medical system, unless you're really bad, unless you have stomach cancer or really severe ulcers, and then they might test you for pylori. But again, we see this indicated, and again, this isn't a medical device and I can't diagnose you, but we just see this stuff indicated in everyone. No one scans clean on this machine. Okay. All right. So this is just another look at, again, this is the stomach, and we're kind of seeing both some symptoms of things potentially, and then some causes. So you see that Helicobacter pylori. So he's a cause of a lot of bad stuff in the world right now. So and again, if you're having gastric upset, if you're having burning, if you're having burping, if you're having ulcer, let's say, like symptoms, either, very mild or very severe, if you have burning when you eat certain kinds of foods, you more than likely have H. pylori. Now, what do you do about that? Well, pharma has an antibiotic routine that you can do. We have some things in True Medics in our supplement company that you can do that have been shown, let's say, or people have reported that they're effective. But you need to do something, because this guy will eat your stomach. He will cause stomach cancer. He can cause diabetes. He can cause type 2 diabetes. He can cause kidney failure. He can cause liver failure. He can cause all manner of problems that you're just going to get treated, your liver markers are off in the blood test. And so now we've got to treat you like you're having liver failure. And oh no, God is not a perfect engineer. Your liver is failing. No, that's not how it works. Something causes the liver to fail. And again, something like H. pylori can do things like that. So on our, if you come see us and you get one of these reports and everything, so go through this process, you'll get a report that kind of goes through your entire function, really, looking for different things. And again, this is just informational. So it's just saying in frequency, we're seeing this frequency, and this frequency has been associated with these things. Okay. So it's not diagnosing you by any means. But what it does is it does give indications of things. And so, when I see like issues, any issue really in the urinary, certainly with the kidneys, if you just logic would say that, again, if my kidneys are stressed and tired, what do the kidneys do? Well, they filter blood. And, again, if they're filtering thick, gooey blood, then that's likely a pretty good indication of why they're stressed. And if I can remove what is causing that blood to be thick and gooey, that will likely help those kidneys come back online and function more properly, because God is a perfect engineer. He built you perfect. So on our reports, you'll see blue is sort of symptoms, so it's just stuff that potentially is being caused by other things. And then the red are potentially causal agents. And so you can see this person has a potential causal agent called Gardnerella vaginitis. This guy is, he's responsible for UTIs. He's responsible, or can be responsible, for endometriosis. And he also can be responsible for a lot of kidney infections, because he likes to crawl up the urinary tract and get in the kidneys. So he's a kind of a nasty bug that can, cause a lot of problems. He can cause your kidneys to fail. He can cause all kinds of urinary stuff. He can cause all kinds of kidney stuff, all kinds of things. So, but he's really easy to kill. So that's kind of the nice thing. And how do you kill bugs like this? Nature. God always provided us the perfect solution that's right out here in nature. We've just got to wake the heck up and kind of remember what we've forgotten and go back to nature for solutions. But there's a lot of things in nature that will kill that particular bug, either topically or orally. So a lot of ways to go at him. H. pylori is a little different. He's a pretty dang sophisticated and hard to kill bug, but there are ways to eradicate him that we're finding. And again, nature is always the way. Generally animals in the wild don't die of things like this, right? So they don't die of a H. pylori infection, but you can. The reason that they don't is by their diet and by their behavior. They just understand that there's certain things in nature that they need to eat. And by eating those certain things, they'll gain immunity. They'll build immunity, or they'll build basically mediators that they need to be able to fight off these things. We've somehow lost that ability, but we kind of need to get it back. So anyway, that's a little bit of a look of some of the technologies that we have here at Neighborly Wellness here at our clinic in Edmond. Um, these technologies obviously really help us understand the human body in a completely different way. So, you know, again, I couldn't look at you like a doctor, but when you come in here, I absolutely will not look at you like a doctor because I'm not a doctor. But we're going to look at you in kind of a different way, and we're really going to get information about. I'm really after infection. I want to see, you know, if you're infected, where you're infected, and what is infecting you. Because I know that if we get rid of the cause of that infection, that all manner of things inside of you will begin to work better, function better, and will bring you to your highest self kind of perfect form. And if we all want to get to our perfect form, and that's really what, you know, my science is about, is how do we optimize you? How do we make you all you can be? How do we make you sing like, you know, sing the song that you're supposed to sing, right? And right now we're all in the toilet, boys and girls. We're all in the toilet by our behavior. We're all in the toilet by our eating behavior. You know, we put ourselves to sleep with the amount of sugar that we eat. We don't understand our function. We don't understand how powerful our bodies are, how godly our bodies are, and their ability to heal themselves if we just get out of the way. But we're gonna understand all this. All this is coming. All this is coming. All this is coming, which is really cool. Anyway, we'll leave it there for today. Again, if you are in the Oklahoma area, come see us at Neighborly Wellness. We will, and again, if you have a situation, call us. We'll come see you. So we do house calls depending on how far away you are. And obviously, if you have an issue going on, check out True Medics. So check out our supplements that we build at truemedics.com. They're all based on my issued patent, which is right up there. And then also, you know, our knowledge base. So we're able to, because we see people, you know, in kind of a clinical way, although we can't say that, we get a lot of information and knowledge about what works, what doesn't, what's going on with people, and all that. So anyway, we like to share that knowledge and want to share it with you like we're doing right now. So come see us if you're in the area. If not, you know, we still do consulting and all that. So you can kind of find out about that on the website. Anyway, we'll leave it there, and we'll see you guys next week for another exciting version of Chip Talks Podcast. Bye, guys.